Hello, and welcome to She Rises, the podcast where women in leadership take center stage. I'm Tiffany-O, your host and the founder of Virtual Partner, where we champion humanity in the workplace to build thriving organizations. With over 30 years of experience in change management and servant leadership, I'm here to bring you powerful stories, actionable insights, and inspiring conversations with trailblazing women who are breaking barriers and redefining success. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, leading your own venture, or looking for that next level of impact, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to rise. Let's dive in. Today, I am thrilled to have Jaime Chambron join us on the She Rises podcast. Now, Jaime is the founder of the Career Agility System, a platform dedicated to helping individuals advance their careers by aligning their professional goals with their personal values. With a strong focus on resume and LinkedIn optimization, interview prep, and career coaching, Jaime empowers professionals to elevate their careers and achieve their fullest potential. Her mission is clear: to provide the tools and insights needed for career transformation and growth. Now, let's dive into her journey and discover the transformation insights she has to share with us today. Welcome, Jaime.
Thanks for having me, Tiffany. I'm excited.
I'm super excited too. Now, what I didn't include in the introduction was your role with the Alliance of Tech and Women. So before we dive into anything else, could you sort of fill us in on what you've been doing with women in the tech space in Texas?
Yeah, so I actually relocated to Texas back during the internet boom and bust in the 2000, 2001, and I did get connected to the community, found a great group of women in tech who were getting ready to launch a new organization, and it sounds super exciting. And so I joined them as one of the co-founders to help launch the Girls in Tech program, focused in on showcasing to middle school girls the art of what's possible in science and technology. And we launched what we call Great Minds back then. And it actually stands for Girls Reaching for Education About Technology, Moving in New Directions for Success. And that organization and the girls program is still rocking and rolling with other leadership and grandiose programs that they run today, but it's still thriving here in Dallas.
I am super excited and moved, really, at a heart level about the Great Minds programming that you're doing. There's another woman that I want to make sure that you get connected to, Dr. Lisa Hinkleman with Rocks Ruling Our Experience. Same age group, but I think you guys are moving in the same space. But I love what you're doing to introduce girls to the STEM field, right? And creating those opportunities, both mentoring and exposure. That's what we need to have more women enter tech as careers. So hats off to you. And I also want to celebrate that you've been doing this for how long now?
So the organization has been around, so I guess it's over 20 years. I'm now on the sidelines as I see other leaders taking the program and taking the organization forward, but I still do a lot of giving back in the area. I do a lot of career panels to middle school girls about STEM careers. But yeah, I'm still a source to the different groups and kind of advancing this specific initiative forward and just getting more girls engaged in STEM careers.
I have to take my hat off. You are like a superwoman, right? You are wearing all the hats. So you've got this community hat that you're wearing, community building. Then you've got almost like a resource pipeline with girls in tech, getting them primed to enter the tech industry at a very early age. And then you have the business, the career agility system that you've launched and that coaching practice. And I just want to call out you're not just coaching women, but you're coaching men too, and not just in the United States, but you're global, right? What are some countries where you have clients in?
Yeah, so everywhere from, US, Canada, obviously, but then I've had clients around UK. I've worked with some clients over in New Zealand and Australia. It's really across the board in, doing coaching, working on people's personal brands, you can do it virtually. And as long as the time zones work out and, I'm a fit for what someone's looking for, you can go across the borders and help someone reach their goals in their career.
I love it. I love it. Congratulations to you wearing all those hats. Let me ask you this before we jump into like how you got started. How do you balance it all? Because as a woman, that's what we want women to pursue their dreams, give back to the community, take care of yourself and your family. How are you able to do the balancing act?
Priorities and focus. I do have a business coach, and she always compliments me on the amount of focus I have and what I'm getting my day done and what I need to do and what can wait till next week.
It's interesting. You are a coach and you have a coach. I'm a coach. I also have a coach. I have found that and having a coach alongside is an indispensable part of the balancing act. So I'm so grateful to hear you sort of call out the need to have a coach. So for all
Yeah.
my listeners, if you think you're going to go this alone and be successful and stay focused on the right things, if you can do it alone, great. But for most of us, I think that I've spoken with on these podcasts, most of them have coaches. So hats off to you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what inspired you. I know that you did early retirement. So would love for you to share the story with listeners about how you created the career agility system and maybe what challenges you had to face in its development.
Yeah, so it's probably now not quite a decade, but some time ago. So I was in tech field, B2B SaaS companies, B2B tech for, since I was in San Francisco and moved to Dallas. And I had to learn early in my career, because I started it in the internet boom and bust, how to go reposition myself to find the next opportunity. And even today, no matter economic situations, you just know companies are going to take off, they're going to go to the next place and they're going to need different people, or it gets acquired, they're going to need different people, or it doesn't work out and you need to go find another role. So, or new leaders come in, like the tech in particular, because it's so fast paced and it's continuously changing and you don't know what technology is going to make it or not make it. And with the way there's always something else on the horizon, you've got to be constantly reinventing yourself, disrupting yourself and what you do today and what you should do tomorrow. And so, besides one organization where I stayed for 8 years, but I went through we were acquired, we were merged with a competitor, we became another brand. I learned even through that how to reposition myself, how to get myself promoted, how to get into the pivot that was going on in the industry, which was the starting of the SaaS world in 2012, which meant when I used to run services, I had to move into customer success and understand what that meant in terms of adoption and technology and you name it. But otherwise, I was in different companies in different roles every 2 to 3 years, if not shorter. And so every time I was in between or getting ready for a move, I had to update my resume. I had to refresh, what I learned, what the value I bring, and what does the market need today. They don't need me to go create a systems integration practice. They need me to go figure out why customers are churning. And so I've just learned how to keep learning and how to evolve what my brand is and keep those assets up to date to get to where I was going. Now, back to the almost a decade ago, I started to think about what's next, because you do this over and over and over and over again. It's the same problems, the same stories, the same work, and you just start to get bored on, yeah, I'm growing, but I'm not growing to the exponential I was back early on in my career. And so you kind of look at, where else can I make a difference or an impact, and is this really what I love to do and want to do, and what can I do into when I get much older? Like, what can I do where if I want to do it for a month and then turn it off for a month? And so I started looking at becoming a coach and going through training for coaching. And as I started to do some coaching on the side, people would also ask me, hey, can you update my resume? Can you help me with my LinkedIn profile? And so I just, again, on the side and in between opportunities, I started to do these different engagements and building a client base and building references. And so I finally hit a point at the end of 21, as I was leaving the last tech company I was at. I kind of looked at where I've been and what I really want to do and going, I've got some runway. And so I think it's time to just say I'm retiring from my former career and I'm going to go all into helping others really achieve their potential in their careers and focus on that now going into however long I end up doing that. Hopefully, this is my forever organization and takes me into different directions because I'm now, constantly growing and learning things and doing things while helping others achieve what they want to achieve in their careers.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So let me just like break down a couple of like high points that I heard. One, for those that are listening, I hope you keyed in on something that she talked about. Number one, lifelong learner. So whatever you know today, what does the marketplace, what is your company, your customers, your client, what does the world need tomorrow, not just today? So lifelong learning, if you don't already know it, once you figure out what people need, then go learn that. The next one is around repositioning and refreshing your own personal brand. So we often, as entrepreneurs, we talk about our business brand. But what I heard you say, Jaime, is that we need to be thinking about the personal brand we're creating inside of organizations. As women, what is the message that people carry about us? And if there isn't a message, how do you frame that? What do you want people to say about you when you are not in the room?
Yep.
That's the personal brand, and that you have to continue to evolve that. Is that what I heard you say?
Absolutely. And that's the one thing in everyone's control. You control your personal brand. You are the one to set what I like to say, the brand promise, the what you do for who and the value you provide. You control that online. You control that when you introduce yourself to someone new. You control that when you're, catching up with a friend of yours of what are you up to? Because again, it's going to evolve as you evolve in terms of what you've done, what you love to do, what you want to do next. And so you've got to constantly align that and refresh that message.
I love it. The other piece I thought was very interesting, and I don't know if I thought this was a generational thing, right? That we were seeing a new trend in the workplace about the movement in jobs every 2 to 3 years. But from a talent acquisition, talent retention perspective, would you have stayed in those roles longer if the trajectory was outlined for you and there was a growth path identified for you? Would you have stayed longer than 2 to 3 years, or would you still have moved to get to the next spot?
It probably just depended on the organization. Like, so some of the moves were due to just cultures and
Ah,
once you're in there and knowing what the culture's like, because you don't know what the culture's like until you're actually an employee.
yeah, culture eats strategy for dinner every day.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a piece of it. And just kind of navigating was if there was a plan and if there was empowerment to, the path of where to go next, probably, and that's probably why I stayed at the one organization I was with for 8 years, because
Mm,
they intentionally grew me. They gave me more responsibilities over and over again. I was always helping with strategic items for the senior VP once I got to the VP level. So it was just, it wasn't, and I don't think there's as much of clear exact paths anymore. There's in the ladder you climb, but there was always opportunities to take on new initiatives and to grow myself.
I love it. Thank you for that distinction for listeners. Like, so a part of our data collection is looking at what is it from a talent development, talent retention perspective? What is it that causes people to stay longer, that makes it worth you investing in that talent? So it's interesting that you talked about two things. One is from a leadership perspective and a talent development perspective, intentionality around grooming people when they come in. Two, they need to see where they're going to be able to go. And then the third piece is the highest strategic priorities you place them on, then they feel connected to developing something meaningful that the organization is working on. So for those of us that are in leadership with teams, that's something we need to be thinking about. Thank you for calling that out. So I'm curious, as you've shifted now to the coach, right? You've done masterful in moving through your career, navigating. Now you've shifted to helping others do the same. So I'm curious, and it seems like your own journey has influenced your approach to coaching and development. What are you noticing in terms of as you're coaching men and women? Are you still noticing a difference or disparity in pay gap. Is that still something that we should be thinking about? And if so, how do we close the gap?
Yeah, so definitely the gap is still there. I think it's been sitting at around the same, either 11 or 15 cents on the dollar short for almost 2 decades now.
Wow.
So it's still huge. And this is back to getting comfortable early in your career negotiating your base package, because that just, it compounds. And if you
Mm.
don't do it early and often enough, you definitely are going to be left behind or be part of the gap that occurs. So it's definitely encouraging. I'm coaching all my clients on how to negotiate their offers so they aren't in the gap.
So it sounds like what you're encouraging is take control of the salary setting on the front end, and get some courage behind your voice to
Yes.
get the courage to ask for, know where you should be and where your male counterparts are, and get the courage to figure out how to structure the ask. And if you
Yes.
don't know how to do that, you need to work with someone like Jaime Chambron to help you get control of that early on. Thank you. That's a great call out and a great point to be able to begin to track. Are there any pivotal moments?
So definitely the move from San Francisco to Dallas, like that was a big decision on seeing what was happening in the Bay Area and not wanting to all of a sudden be unemployed in the Bay Area in my first, job out of college.
Mhm.
So that definitely impacted a culture trajectory. So I was already coming to Dallas, and there was a stark difference between in the same company, the culture always on, always working in San Francisco versus the family oriented 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 office setting. And so I think that showed me that there's more to work, that there's, you can balance life and have a life and still be in tech. And so that was a healthy change that probably put me on certain trajectories that if I was still in the Bay Area, who knows, what high stress role would I be in or not be in. So I think that was one piece of it. I've had really great bosses along the way. And the one when at the company that I was at for 8 years, again, those executives, they were former EDS executives, and they just saw things in me and they spent the time. And even it wasn't my boss, it was my boss's boss who would sit with me in the rooms to help me improve how I present complex topics to a sales audience. And that role in particular shaped a lot of how I approach packaging people, if you will, today. Because I was running professional services, I was building a whole new services line of business. And I became really good at how do I package and promote intangibles. And what I see people are services to others because you're delivering some sort of value or intangible. And I take what I've learned during those formative years into my practice today.
That's incredible. Let me just, if I could recap, how long did it take you to get from sort of like individual contributor to people leader, or to a key leader role?
So when I was in the first org for about 3 years, I had already started moving into management, but more junior project manager. So I wasn't directly managing talent like from an HR perspective, but I was starting to coordinate people because I asked for it. I didn't want to be a
Mm.
programmer because I came with a computer science degree. I asked to move into that path. And again, I had fabulous senior program managers and project managers that took the time to mentor and groom me in project management best practices, communications, dealing with turn because it was a turnaround project I was put it on. So when I got to the next role was where I started to be more of a manager and managing a few more junior resources and documentation. And again, I had a great boss who saw my potential and started to enable me to manage one or two resources and move into that management role. And it was the next role after that was where I was pulled in as a director because I not only was managing in a company, and this is where I talk to people about what they do outside of work, especially as a young professional. I was also president of a young professional organization.
Mm.
That in particular demonstrated not only can I manage people, I can manage people who aren't even getting paid to do something. And so that's what built the trust and saw the potential to bring me in at the director level to go create a team that went from like 3 people I inherited to 10 people overnight. And then it just kept growing and growing my capabilities from there.
I love it. Again, I'm seeing what I'm hearing in your story is how proactive you were. Number one, for those that are listening, she asked for an opportunity. So inherently, as a developer or a programmer, maybe that would not come with people leader, right? You're managing a process or a program, but you said, "Hey, I want to do a little bit more than that." So that was number one. Number two, you took the initiative to lead and demonstrate leadership by volunteering in an organization that provided value.
Mhm.
And then three, you raised your hand, like it's time. And you had those very transparent conversations with your leaders to be able to get there, and you had great bosses. So there's a form. It sounds like there's a formula to be able to move, and that goes to and something else you said was you got practice and how to show up. That was one of the things we talk about, shortening the leadership journey. I have an ambitious goal to shorten the leadership runway for women from the front door to the top floor to less than 10 years. And one way that I heard you mention was how you show up. Is there anything else you think we can do to achieve the shortening the leadership runway for people to get there faster?
Yeah, well, and this is the always the, and this has been talked about for a while now, but women helping other people pull them up, right? Don't
Mm.
push them back, but help pull them up, help give them the opportunities and the exposure to get to that next place.
I've heard this as a theme consistently. Women talk about sending the elevator back down. Once you get there, that pulling them up, send the elevator down for others. Invite them to be on your team. Talk about them when they're not in the room. You mentioned mentoring and before. How do you think mentorship and sponsorship programs can be structured to effectively fast track development?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think part of it is having actual structure in terms of check-ins and meetings, and it can't be unstructured. I also think the sponsors need to meet and talk about the talent. Like I remember doing a lot of 9 box reviews where you would talk about people 2 levels below you so that you can share with your peers who's up and coming and is there an opportunity to move people up. And so there, I think you've got to formalize, where HR comes into the equation, having intentional conversations about talent, having intentional programs to develop talent, be it coaching internally, be it training internally, be it actual rotate. Like a lot of bigger companies still do the rotations where you'll come in and rotate different departments because you need to know a little bit about everything to become the head of operations or to become a leader in a different group. You've got to be intentional in rotating through the different areas. Like I remember since I was moving into the new chief customer officer type of function, what always held me back from getting one of the things that held me back from getting to that role is I never ran support. They
Mm.
want you to run onboarding and customer success and support. And I never had the opportunity to be in that world. And so, again, being intentional on how you rotate people through the different functions so that you can then lead all the functions.
Wow. I think that is an insight of all the interviews I've done. I appreciate you sharing that insight. That's a nuance that I believe organizations can think about. It seems like I know, like in banking, they have a program like that, right? They're very intentional about moving potential leaders through all of the functions in the banking industry. They seem to do that very well. We could learn a lot from that.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So let's take our leadership conversation a bit more globally. How do you see the role? You mentioned coaching. So, how do you see the role of career coaching in creating more inclusive and diverse workplaces? The workplace now is a global workplace, right? COVID showed us that we can work outside the boundaries of the state you live in or the country you live in, and we can be broad. So, let's talk about career coaching and creating this diverse workplace.
Yeah. So I think the biggest area of opportunity is just coaching people on cultural differences and communication styles. because there's definitely cultures that's gonna be very blunt and direct, but it doesn't, like, you can't take it the wrong way. It's just how they communicate. So I think the more we can facilitate how to handle communications on either end of the equation of knowing, if you're communicating up or sideways or down or to your customers, I think that's a big thing because that's going to help build the trust and the rapport of just understanding the cultural differences and being able to work together and to lead teams from that perspective.
That's interesting. If we can shorten the time frame of building trust and rapport, you can imagine how much a team can get done and how quickly they can move towards that collective shared results, right? If you could be able to do that in a shorter period of time. So cultural sounds like not maybe would you say cultural sensitivity, or would we be talking awareness and communication and differently? What
I
would we?
think it's more awareness and communication, just respecting and understanding everyone's coming from a different way to communicate and just coming to, common language, common ways to collaborate and work together, knowing everyone's in it for the right reasons and everyone's marching towards the same vision and objectives.
Love it. I love it. In your view, how can organizations build leadership teams that reflect global diversity and ensure robust representation of women? Now, I know I'm asking this question because DE&I is a hot topic, and we got to flip it on its head, right? While we may not call our efforts diversity, equity, inclusion, we may not have structured offices, the intentionality around representation and diversity, global diversity, still needs to be there. The data tells us we have more innovation, we achieve more together. So how can organizations build teams that reflect this now, even if they're not mandated to?
Yeah, so it's back to that intentional, where's your high potential talent, and making sure you are pulling up any and all, no matter what their background is. And, being even more, just being conscious of an opportunity comes up, where can you add someone different to be in that area, and looking, internally first, let's be the easiest of where you have high potential talents. And then if you need to go externally, but knowing that you have to be very intentional of, we need someone different in this role. And what does different mean? What does that look like in terms of the requirements and who can meet that, besides being someone that comes in with all the credentials? Like, I think there's just so much competitive talent out there that you're have a swath of all kinds of people that could fit that role, that could deliver, but being intentional on how you select the role, the person for the role.
Wow. If we think about strategic advantages, what strategic advantage does that kind of intentionality bring, especially in enhancing decision making and innovation?
Well, I think that's it, is you're going to get a different perspective at the table. You're going to get a different set of ideas. You're going to get a different set of experiences than everyone who's been through the same programs and projects and education or cultural upbringing. You're going to all of a sudden be infused with a lot of different ideas, a lot of different experiences, and a lot of different perspectives to move the needle.
Wow. I could definitely see in terms of innovation, you could avoid groupthink, right? When you bring those global perspectives to the table. Thanks for sharing those insights. Okay, so let's think about advice you would give as you think about your career trajectory, where you've been, what you've done, clients you've coached, organizations that you've influenced, where you've spoken. If you reflect back, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
So for my younger self, I think is the realization of there is no one fit all path or journey. So I think and that your career journey, your life journey, it's going to be in stages. And I think in every stage, you need something different, or you want something different. So it's gaining that clarity, like gaining clarity on what you need now and what you want now, and then being vocal about it to get to where you want to go next. And just knowing every piece of life, this will be a different stage and a different need, and be willing to make those pivots to get to that next place.
That is awesome. I've heard you in our conversation, there's some underlying themes even before we got on camera today around the voice, right? Strengthening your voice seems to be one of the things that you consistently have done and encourage others to do. Thank you for that piece of advice. What's one word that would describe your view of leadership?
Empowering.
Hmm. Okay. I said one word, but can you dig into that? Because I that's one of my favorite words.
If leaders are doing what they're set out to do, they are empowering others, be it peers, be it direct reports. I think that is part of you as a leader. The role is being able to delegate to others what need to get done or communicating what needs to get done and then get out of their way.
I love it. Get out of their way. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. I ask this question. Everybody gets this question. And some people give me their Marvel character, their DC comic character, and some people give me their real life person. So, who's your superhero?
Top of mind, Black Widow.
Oh, oh, awesome, awesome. Mine's Wonder Woman, but Black Widow.
Okay.
Okay. So tell me
Well,
about Black
and
Widow.
now as I reflect on it, my parents would have said the Bionic Woman because I'm actually named after the Bionic Woman, Jamie Summers.
Okay, but tell me about Black Widow. Why'd you pick her?
I just love, how she is strong-willed woman in the movies. I also like the actress herself, but I think she's just a great actress and portrays roles and, being able to get ahead and make a difference and strong-willed. So a lot of different characteristics.
Love it. Isn't it amazing how we identify with people? What books are you currently reading and what would you recommend?
Okay, so right now I am reading The Secret. So kind of going through how to manifest, what you want, now. So that's been a good read. I am reading a book with the family, The Foundation, just trying to get some reading under our belts. I had a client yesterday where I did recommend Fierce Conversations,
Ooh.
just because we were talking about how you can get better at influencing people who are very stubborn and this is how we do business, we're never changing, but to have like real fierce conversations around no, there is a problem and here's what we need to start doing to address it.
Mm, love it. Thank you very much for those recommendations. Now, I love your mission to empower professionals through career agility. Can you talk about your vision for the career agility system and how you see it evolving in the future?
Yeah, so the big vision is being a guide from really early in your career, even pre-career, to becoming a legacy in and of yourself. And
Mm,
so my vision is to offer services to help you at, again, back to those stages of life. At each stage of your life, what you need in your career then and what you need to help make a pivot or to get to what you want next or to figure out what that really is, and to go from graduating college, young professional to mid-career to becoming a seasoned leader, to becoming now I'm a thought leader, to becoming now I'm an entrepreneur, to I've done all these things, how do I leave a legacy?
yeah, your work, what you're doing when you talk about legacy, I once was on an interview and it's the first time anyone ever asked me that question around legacy. And I have to take my hat off and say thank you. It was with Cardinal Health, and it was a key leader role. And I'm so grateful that he asked me what legacy did I want to leave. It was the first time anyone ever asked me that question. And in that moment, I had to give pause,
Mhm.
but afterwards, I was so uncomfortable with the answer I gave in the moment. It made me sit still and think about like what legacy I want to leave. And that's why that's why I've stood up She Rises, right? Can I change the trajectory of women and shorten the leadership runway, impacting not just the women doing the work, but the organizations that hire them, right? Retention, talent acquisition, cultural shifts, enjoyment of work, well-being at work. There's just so many things. If I can I change the trajectory of how we're educating women from high school and college? Does that curriculum change? My goal is like, it made me really think about legacy work. So I'm so glad that you're doing this kind of work too. More of us need to think about this earlier in our careers than later. I'm thinking about it now in middle of life, right? What kind of legacy do I want to leave, and then how am I going to start tracking towards that? But I love that you're causing emerging leaders to think about that early in their career. This is really awesome. So as we think about closing out, I'm really grateful to you for joining today. Can you sort of walk us through where you can be found? What's coming up for women in tech in Dallas? Any events coming up? And I also want to thank you for supporting the She Rises Global Survey, right? Having our missions align in terms of shortening the leadership runway. And so I'm so grateful to have your organization support the launch of that survey. So talk to us a little bit more about how people can engage with you and where they can find you.
Yeah, so obviously I'm based in Dallas, Texas, but I am all over social. Biggest ways to come follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn, you just look up my last name. That's my URL handle. There's obviously careeragilitysystem.com if you want to learn more about what I offer to help professionals with their careers. And then I've got lots of events coming up on Eventbrite is where I publicize all the different free webinars that I host with career tips and guidance on advancement. And soon I will be launching my own podcast to help with navigate telling the stories of those who've navigated big challenges, big opportunities to really help. So be on the lookout for the Career Navigator to hit podcast streaming very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can't wait. Congratulations on the launch of your podcast. We need more women. There's enough women and enough organizations that are employing them where we can all sort of pull those stories together and really learn from one another. I can't wait to stream your podcast when it launches. As we wrap up today's enlightening conversations, again, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to you, Jaime, for sharing your invaluable insights and experiences with us. Your journey and your dedication to empowering professionals is inspiring. Now, at Virtual Partner, we're committed to transforming workplaces into hubs of innovation and inclusivity. We're on a mission to gather insights and stories from women leaders worldwide to better understand the challenges and triumphs they face. Your voice matters, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you're listening, before we go, if you're inspired by what you've heard today and you want to join us in our mission to empower women leaders, don't forget to participate in the She Rises survey at virtualpartner.biz/how she rises. Participating in the survey will help shape the future discussions on this podcast and initiatives that we have that are aimed at supporting women in leadership roles. Now, together, I believe we can create a future where equity prevails and every woman has the opportunity to rise. Thank you for tuning in to She Rises. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep rising. Until next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of She Rises. I hope you found inspiration, insight, and the motivation to keep pushing forward on your leadership journey. Remember, success isn't about reaching the top. It's about lifting others as you rise. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other powerhouse women in your life. Follow me, Tiffany-O, and Virtual Partner for more resources on leadership, organizational growth, and creating workplaces where humanity thrives. Until next time, keep rising, keep leading, and keep making an impact.